The desert sat there like an oven on low. Fine sand sifted into my wedding shoes. Wind hissed thinly through rows of folding chairs dressed in white ribbon. On the rented wooden arch, tulle flicked and snapped, and a purpled mountain range lay wrinkled on the horizon like an old bruise. The PA squealed, just a pinprick of feedback, while a banquet tech bent over a cable as if he were charming a thin, stubborn snake. We'd set the ceremony for 4:30 p.m., but the sun doesn't keep people's hours. It wrapped my neck in heat like a towel fresh from a dryer turned too high. Noah brushed the back of my hand. One light tap that said, "I'm here, I'm ready," the same way he sounds when he calls coordinates for ghosts somewhere past the ridgeline. Caleb came in from the guest rows. White shirt too tight, tie hanging loose, eyes hammered upright like 2 nails. He smiled the way pranksters do, lips hooked stiff when he clocked my dress blues folded over a chair, rank catching light like a sliver of cold moon. I thought about quiet dinners in our little kitchen back home, about all the how long can a girl fly, really? Tossed like chicken bones. I'd promised Noah, today would be just us, the vows, a new stretch of road. I'd believed I could cross this desert without fighting. The officiant began. Each opening word fell like a drop of scarce water. I looked at Noah and he smiled, disciplined, kind, a line drawn with a straight edge. He looked like a radio on the right frequency. No static, no swagger, just the right words at the right time. We're okay, I told myself, the way my chest settles after I lock a target, wrists firm, heart even. Caleb brushed my shoulder as he passed, soft but on purpose. Cheap bourbon and hot dust hit my nose. "Not now," I whispered, and barely got the last syllable out before his hand popped the bridal bouquet. Flowers flew like a spooked flock and skittered into the sand. A hush rolled the chairs. Somewhere metal on my dress blues ticked together, small but razor clear. The desert has one lesson. Everything burns if you give it a spark. I bent for a stray daisy, and he leaned in close, engine-hot breath off a truck that just died. He muttered about toy airplanes and keyboard hero in the sky. My tongue turned to chalk. My throat rasped like sandpaper. Noah took half a step, fist tightening, then letting go, eyes cutting the scene like he was boxing a compass, closing on a choice. The punch came without a headline. It hit with a thick thud, and the world broke into white gnats of light. In 3 heartbeats, I heard lace scrape skin, a chair go over, someone saying my name like a call sign on a dirty net. I didn't go down. The cheap wedding shoes snagged in the sand and kept me staked upright. My left cheek started its own hot, pulsing drum. Blood iron bloomed, mixing with hairspray and supermarket roses. Noah wasn't a groom in a fitted suit anymore. He was the man the radio builds in cold dawns and noon heat. Short commands, boxed breath, eyes measuring distance. "Caleb," he said, voice flat as canopy glass. "Stop, hands where I can see them." You didn't need to know the lingo to hear authority. The military friends in the first row, Noah's guys, a young couple in service dress, tightened their grips on chair backs like they'd caught the same frequency. Caleb barked a laugh and came on, one hand splayed like he meant to hug, the other yanking his tie looser. Tendons jumped along his neck like a handful of stubborn ropes, and that open palm drifted toward the lace at my chest. Noah slid, no hurry, no flare, until his frame sat square between us. "Don't touch her," he said. 4 words, clean as a latched hatch, 4 words that made the whole desert hear the distance between a man and a lawful order. I pressed fingers to my cheek. They shook, not from fear, from anger. For years I'd been packing anger like sand into sacks, not to throw but to shore up the levee. Today the sand shifted. I looked at the red freckles speckling white lace and thought of ejection drills and the checklist my body knows by reflex. Somewhere in me a new list unfolded. Who's standing where, who can witness, nearest exit, water source, phone numbers. The desert teaches thirst, The sky teaches math. The efficient stammered for calm. An uncle stood, mouthing family business like a paper talisman. But family business has never stopped blood. I heard Noah's breathing change, one deep pull, the kind he takes before he keys up on a cluttered net. I knew if Caleb took a half step more, the language would change, no more flowers or white lace. I didn't want our wedding to turn into an operation, but the operation has always lived in our bones. Caleb snorted, backed off exactly one beat, then flicked the last rose pinned in my hair. Something very old in me cracked, the part that swallowed kitchens, tables, and a decade of digs. I pulled the rose, put it in Noah's palm, and heard my voice come out steady. "I'm okay." Noah nodded, one foot still blocking, one eye on Caleb's buddies who were starting to wiggle like a pack that thinks cruelty is sport. A gust shouldered through, carried the cheap booze smell off the front row, and took the leftover shame with it. That left the last job for the day. Keep the scene clean, keep the dignity intact, keep the vows on schedule, even if we had to rewrite the opening in a harder voice. I looked straight at my brother. Some mountains exist to tell you the long way around is the right way. But some days you climb. On that hot ground, between white lace and a smear of blood, I knew life wouldn't look the same after today, not because of the punch, but because of how we answered it. Thanksgiving that year smelled like turkey fat and butter. The gas flame burned hard blue, a little hurricane eye on the stove, while my mother, pumpkin print apron, oversized cocktail ring, tapped a baking sheet with her knuckle. Cranberry sauce burbled in a pot, sweet and sharp like fruit forced to ripen. The back door was cracked. Pasture wind pushed red dust through and mixed it with flour. I kept my eyes on the Afroque envelope, acceptance already in the drawer. This was the packet I had to sign and send back, rank the schools, make it real. My whole future was only a few pages thick, but it was sturdier than every warning ever tossed across this kitchen table. "Don't mess up my counters, sweetheart," Mom said, eyes glued to the football game, dark jerseys colliding like cattle. "You can help set plates." I nodded without moving. My thumb ran the adhesive seam like it was a runway I'd traced for months but never actually landed on. I thought about the sectional maps I'd clipped from old magazines, the nights under the kitchen light, memorizing systems people said weren't for girls. Caleb dragged a chair out just to make it squeal. "Flying, huh?" He stretched the word like taffy. "You'll be flying around this kitchen." I didn't answer. I've learned to set comments like that down on cold coals, not because I'm gentle, because I'm saving oxygen. At 17, you think your front door is the only one that opens. I knew there were others, in houses without country music looping and needlepoint sayings about women should, on the walls. Afroque wasn't just a scholarship. It was a key to a room no one here believed existed. I didn't need them to understand. I just needed them not to wreck it. Dinner hit the table with the same old choreography. Dad carving the turkey, knife spine flashing and disappearing, skin crackling like thin ice. Hands clasped. I shut my eyes and saw my private checklist. Paperwork, signatures, post office. 6:15. I'd mapped it out. Tomorrow at first light I'd bike to the next town's PO and overnight the packet before anyone had time to start asking questions. I'd been counting days like popcorn kernels, except I didn't eat them. I just held them in my cheek to keep from starving. A few months to 18, and then the highway would finally be as long as it looks. While everyone bowed their heads, I set the envelope on the sideboard beside Mom's pumpkin pie. I was grateful for the thin layer of peace, even if it was the thickness of cellophane. Caleb leaned across for the cranberry spoon. He swung too wide. A dark red arc hung in the air, soft as a tongue click, then dumped across my envelope. My breath seized like an engine hiccup too brief for alarms and too long to forget. "Oops," he said, face blank. "Slippery." Mom laughed it off to the table. "Boys." Dad didn't look worried. He looked inconvenienced the way men get when something interrupts a meal. I stood, lifted the bleeding envelope. It felt like blood, too, sticky, sweet-sharp, already going cold. The paper wrinkled, the flap peeled, my neat signature smeared into a purple cloud. "I'll wipe it," Mom said, offering a napkin. I stepped back. Something in my throat compressed, like a diver squeezing through a hatch. "I've got it," I said, and my voice sounded like an empty soda can. In the laundry room, I locked the door, cracked the faucet, tried to save what I could. Ink drifted into no man's land shapes. I set the pages on the dryer, lined them up like shards of a cup. My fingers stained red. I licked them and tasted sweet sour and a hint of metal. In the sink, a knife slipped from the rack and pinged the stainless, clean, merciless sound. I didn't cry. I checked my phone, found a different post office 1 town over, opens earlier. I pulled a new envelope, rewrote every line, every letter, like a soldier scratching out a last note in a tent that won't stop shaking. I thought about every accident Caleb had staged, milk poured over my homework, batteries gone from the TV remote, my voice mocked during a read aloud. I had no proof, just the gut that's kept me alive at dinner. Around here, every mishap has an audience, and the audience claps on cue. By dessert, I slid back to the table. "Sit, eat," Mom said. "Scholarships come and go, not the end of the world." Dad added, "Girls need steady jobs and decent husbands, no dangerous nonsense." I nodded, the nod I learned early, a decoy motion to hide intent. On TV, the crowd roared, camera panning to an eagle-head hat in the stands. I followed the wings and thought of the A10 hog decal on my locker, crude and mean. Let them talk. I just needed morning. I stayed up until 6:15, not because I worried the pages weren't dry, but because I wanted the sun to meet me at the door. I shrugged into a jacket, stuffed singles into my back pocket, rolled my bike off the porch. The air bit. Feedlot and motor oil and stale pie shared the street. I pedaled the dirt road, the brown field, the sleeping trailers. Every downstroke was a line I'd rewritten, every turn a signature. When the post office door chimed and the glass gave, I knew some doors only open if your hand is there at the exact right second. The morning clerk blinked herself awake, took the envelope, printed a label, black bars like contrails in a clear sky. "Overnight?" she asked. "Overnight," I said. It wasn't a plea, it was a confirmation. She slid the receipt across, and I held it the way people hold a badge into the ops floor. Outside, the sun drew a thin gold edge on the frame, cold light. It was a small step, but it was the only one they couldn't crush. By lunch, the house smelled like turkey and old grease. Dad said the dishes were mine. I rolled my sleeves and took my place at the sink like stepping onto a flight line. No glory required, just the right position. Caleb drifted by, whistling his favorite country song. "Good thing it was only paperwork," he said. I didn't turn. Warm water slid fat off the plates, light as a cloud dissolving over the desert, the only thing in this house willing to change shape. On the last dish, I looked out the window at the red lot where the wind pressed dead grass flat into lines. Okay, I thought. Time to draw my own flight plan. And if I have to, I'll paint a hog's head on my nose cone so anyone who looks up will know. I flew through here, alone, and I didn't ask permission. Mornings at Moody have their own gray, like a film of dust over everyone's eyes until the caffeine burns it off. I woke at 04:30, hand-finding the checklist booklet I kept under my pillow. A new trick to hit my brain first thing. Boldface. Ops limits. EP. I mouthed them like a prayer, lips moving to my pulse. Outside the window, Georgia's rubbery frog chorus kept going. a soundtrack specifically engineered to annoy people who want silence. Out on the flight line, JP8 mixed with wet grass, smell of a morning that will not be easy. I slid into gloves and touched the cold aluminum edge of the machine I was trying to become. Doesn't explain, just works. Chair flown yet? My instructor, everyone called him Moose, a walking hanger with laser eyes, asked. I nodded. Moose never said you got this. He said, don't skip steps. He trusts what can be measured. I learned to stand inside the long stairs when I walked into the briefing room, like everyone was adjusting focus to see if my hands would shake. They did. I just learned to shake on the inside. First check ride in the pattern felt like wire walking. Upwind, crosswind, downwind, bass, final. The wind bent the nose the way kids bend popsicle sticks. I nudged it back with tiny inputs, no drama. On the radio, I kept my voice sand-dry and short, no extra words. Let performance talk. Hold airspeed, hold altitude, hold centerline. We touched down and Moose didn't gush. He wrote 3 clean words. She flew the jet. In the hangar, I taped up system schematics like other people tape up band posters. Fuel, hydraulics, electrical, flight controls. I could trace every pound of fuel home, through a vein, through a pump, through the manifold. One night the storm killed the power. The whole bathhouse went cave dark. I used a flashlight and kept reading, letters wobbling on the wall like small waves. I wasn't gifted. I was stubborn. Classroom nonsense, of course. A couple guys snickered when I swapped my hair tie for a black band so nothing dangled. Fancy, one muttered. I pretended not to hear. Some fights aren't worth ammunition. Some are mandatory. That same day, a student flipped a slide too far and left up a tired meme about female pilots. Moose scanned the room in silence. Nobody spoke. He flipped to the next slide and kept teaching gun sight and C-SIP in a voice as steady as a power unit. After class, he called me over. People test each other 100 ways, he said. You test them one way, standards. I nodded. Rules can be lonely. They're also fair. Formation day came with Liar's silk blue sky and fishing line winds upstairs. I locked on the other jet's wing and kept that line between metal and metal like a secret. Sun flashed the canopy and I lost a beat. My heart kicked. Correct it, Moose said over intercom, no bark, no sugar. I fixed it with 3 fingertips and repeated his sentence to myself. Don't skip steps. On the ramp, sweat at the nape went cold like I'd just broken a fever. Helmet off, hair plastered, hands steady. First time out to the range on a dry profile. The gun gas wasn't in the air yet, but it was in my head. It makes people hungry. I didn't get to squeeze the GAU-8 that day. I still pictured the line of fire-raking desert, tapping a dirt nose 1.5 miles away, the world shaking in a truthful way. The instructor asked, "What do you hear in your head on the pass?" I said, "Just the checklist." He smiled. "Good, don't listen to anything else." Some nights I laid on the dorm bed with a back like a cement mixer ran me over and the phone buzzed. Mom sent a picture of Caleb with a new pickup caption. He's stepping up, taking care of family. Nobody asked if I was flying the next day. I set the phone down, uncapped a marker, and underlined a line in my notebook. Don't rush the jet. Don't rush yourself. Posters carry pretty quotes. My reminders are as plain as calluses. Emergency procedures check. Moose stacked the deck, oil loss, electrical loss, single engine simulated. I don't act well, so I cling to verbs. Boldface poured out of my mouth like water. When I finished, he went quiet for a beat. "People will think you're cold," he said. "That's fine, jet's like cold." I didn't tell him I'm not cold. I've just trained my body to slow down when my head runs hot. In the chow hall, they swapped hunting stories and deployments I didn't fully grasp. I ate dry chicken that chewed like old paper and watched sunlight stripe in like film frames. Loneliness isn't the enemy. It's the blank space where the only sound is the one that matters. Gear down. Flaps. Landing check. I practiced saying it under my breath at the dish sink so my voice would feel like a switch, the right click at the right time. One boiling noon, I cut across the flight line and saw an old gray A-10 hog nose paint flaking. Sleeping beast. I palmed its skin, well cold, well made. A veteran crew chief looked over and tipped his chin. "You want this one?" he asked. I smiled. "I want what it does." He laughed deep. "What it does depends on who's sitting in it." I carried that sentence all summer like a pocket charm. Final phase, assignment list went up. I read left to right, knuckles white on my backpack straps. My name lined up with the hard road, Cass, desert, target boards. Mouth dry, chest warm. A hand landed on my shoulder. "Congrats, ma'am." I turned and smiled, a smile that didn't need anyone's permission. That night I called home. Mom asked, "Do you ever think about stopping?" I said, "I think about landing every time I take off." On the line, our old kitchen's silence. I wasn't asking them to understand. I was filing a notice. A few weeks later, orders slotted me west for a joint exercise. The op line read dry as wind. Nevada Integrated CAS exercise. I reread it and felt grit from some future desert shake into my boots. I didn't know who I'd meet there. I knew Moose's rule would ride shotgun. Don't skip steps. I closed my notebook, rolled my gear, brushed a finger over a little acrylic hog head I'd drawn for luck. In the mirror, the 17-year-old from the kitchen was gone. What remained was a student pilot fluent in the quiet language of the checklist, about to learn a new dialect. Radio. Nevada looked like a giant chalkboard. Grid lines in burnt mountain ridges, dotted with low brush, letters written in wind. I climbed into the cockpit and cinched the lap belt till it bit. Hot plastic and sun-baked metal gave the air that self-roasting garage smell. Far out, 2 F-16s scratched a silver line across the sky. On the deck, tight spires of dust marked where a mock convoy had just rolled through. I set radios to the fragged freaks, ran the checklist, the language of verbs and nouns, no adjectives allowed. Push throttles. The old hog shouldered off the runway and the map I knew by heart unrolled under the belly, somehow new again. "Hog flight, hold the stack," the controller called. "Hog 1, maintain Angels, standby." I settled into my orbit, spacing off the element ahead. Sun strobed the canopy and sharpened the world like a whetstone. The net was a farmer's market of voices, busy, overlapping, until one came in that made the others step back without being asked. "Hog flight, Anvil 1, I've got the picture." That voice went straight to the part of my brain that obeys. He started with what mattered. Ground team's position, direction of movement, a simulated threat on the left flank, the ridge line for a TAC. No filler. I could feel the grid in my head clicking together, somebody setting Legos in the right slots. "Anvil 1, say target." I answered, my own voice lower, drier, like somebody else's. "Target is 2 BMPs dug in, northwest face, grid to follow." He ran the 9 line like running water, paused at remarks to lay in friendlies. I wrote the numbers like music, digits hopping across my kneeboard. "Hog 1 copies," I said. "IP inbound." In the breath between our lines, I realized something funny. Nobody had taught me how to talk to a stranger and sound like we'd worked together for years. Turns out CAS is a conversation, and good conversations worship structure. I rolled in, eyes chained to the ridge. Crosswind gnawed at me, thermal shimmer wobbled like heat over a griddle. "Visual friendlies," I called, catching the colored smoke rope up into the blue. "Cleared hot." He came back, calm as setting a coffee on a coaster. I tipped, pulled to the parameters, resting my trigger finger on a dry pass. For a tick, all extra thoughts burned off, just airspeed, angle, pipper. I recovered, gut dropping, and his voice popped back on. "Good talk on, effects on target." Nobody says great job. Compliments live in words like those. Good talk on. Effects. Enough to tell you the dialect you chose was correct. I climbed back to the stack and flowed the track to my flight lead. From up here, the desert looked half charred, half varnished, and his voice from below kept the whole thing threaded. Picture when we needed context. Update when the ground truth shifted, like a host who never steps on the guest. On the handoff of our last pass, he tossed me a grin of a sentence. Hog one, you speak checklist. I laughed into the intercom only I could hear and answered. Affirm. Felt like someone had spotted the mechanical heart under the armor and saluted it. We recovered to a forward sight where heat made the ramp shimmer like someone sprinkled sugar and lit it. Down the ladder, helmet off, sweat pasted at the nape. A TAC team was angling toward the portable AC unit outside a tent. The one in front slid his shades off, eyes the color of a pale cloud bank. He offered the handshake everyone in this world understands better than a hug, short, firm, release on time. Anvil 1, he said. Noah. I gave him my name. Most lives start on ordinary words. In the brief tent, we sat across a whiteboard. He walked the timeline, sketched the valley and the simulated enemy in a few quick lines. Pointing at the northwest corner, he said, This is where your voice settled, right after you said IP inbound. Most people wobble there. I nodded, grateful he'd named the thing I was trying to hide. I wobble, I said, but the checklist speaks for me. He smiled, not the pitying rookie smile, the teammate smile that recognizes a method. Checklist is good, he said. When the net gets dirty, you've got to hear the human. CAS is a conversation. For the first time, I understood it in another key. That afternoon, I stepped out with a lukewarm water bottle. Wind pushed sand sideways, safety flags fluttered like fish on a dock. Noah passed, stopped just long enough not to turn it into a date. Urban Lane tomorrow, he said. Lots of walls and shadows. Radio's gonna be ugly. I'll say less, I replied. He shook his head. Say it right. It was a paring knife of a sentence, took the peel off and left only the fruit. He wasn't lying. The next day the net was echo, engines, men talking over men, a diesel cough every other transmission. I orbited the mock city. Concrete blocks stood like crowded dominoes. Anvil 1, talk me on, I said, spacing each word so they didn't bump. His voice laid a thin trail. From the northwest dome, follow the dusty road, count 2 roofs, find the green tarp. Target under that tarp, he paused. Danger close to friendlies. I throttled impatience, widened my run-in, picked a safer, shallow door. Cleared hot. I let my imaginary beaten zone sag 1 notch lower and peered through the sight like through a keyhole into a dark room. Pulling off, my heartbeat did that slow, clean thump. Good hold, that was right. I didn't answer in words. The exhale through my mask said plenty. That night the tent city went quiet. I lay listening to the portable AC gasp and wrote 1 line in the notebook. Cass, don't try to sound brave. Try to be clear. The lantern light browned the letters like toast. Somewhere in another tent, maybe Noah was writing his own line. Or not writing at all, just letting the desert finish a thought. I zipped the flap. Sand hissed down the teeth. All afternoon his voice had looped in my head, not because it was sweet, but because it kept time. People remember songs for the melody. I remember people for the way they arrange words like charges, careful, exact, and only detonated when required. On the last day before we stepped, we caught each other's eyes across a yard washed in sun. No promise made. I just raised a hand. Short, firm, release on time. He matched it. Some languages don't need extra syllables. Some conversations start on the net and continue where nobody has to speak up. And some deserts come with you when you leave, settling as a thin dust that makes every sound afterward ring at the right pitch. Our backyard was a square of tired ground fenced with sun-bleached boards about chest high. Grass never took. It was gravel mixed with beer caps and dead cigarette butts. Dad had welded a thin steel grill, patchy black paint and pinhole flames that wheezed like an old animal. Mom laid a checkered cloth on a folding table, set out a plastic flour jar, and a half-used box of tissues. Neighbors peeked through the slats like a studio audience spying on a live set. Caleb swung the red wine pickup into place, the kind of paint the sun sands down to old jeans. He popped the door, hopped out, and toe-tapped a tire like patting a loyal dog. "Change the air filter," he declared, drawing the words out so pride could hear itself. Dad nodded, palm blessing the windshield. Mom turned to me. "How long you home? You look thin. Anyone cook for you up there?" I gave the polite smile, unloaded cookies, coffee, BX snacks. I slid a thin envelope beside her hand. "This month's stipend for bills, but—" She looked at the word, but as if it were a splinter. "But I'm not loaning more," I said. "If we need to, we can make a budget." The air twanged like a snapped guitar string. Dad cleared his throat. Caleb snorted. Mom tucked the envelope into her apron and went half tease, half scold. "A house can't stay warm if the woman pinches every penny." I didn't bite. I turned to the grill. "Want me to flip?" Dad handed me tongs gone heavy with years of grease. I tended the fire, listened to meat hiss like a light rain on tin, sweet burnt BBQ sauce gusting back into my face. Smells like that drag me to 15, quieter me, fists knotted in jacket pockets, believing that patience is visible if you hold it long enough. A rain barrel leaned by the fence, PVC downspout dripping into a dented bucket. Two neighbor kids wagged their legs on the steps, counting traffic. In the blue cooler, ice melted and soda cans clicked against one another. Mom poured colas when she reached me. "Beer, for fun." I shook my head. "Driving out early tomorrow." The answer was lawful around here. Law always sounds like a fussy child. Work talk bubbled up. Dad bragged on a cousin welding offshore. Real money, not this airplane mess. Caleb chimed in. "Girl pilots cry when the wind hits, right?" I flipped a rack. Fat spit into coals, flames splashed against the trailer window. "When the wind hits, you correct," I said. "No time to cry." He laughed louder. "Right, correct it in your video game." Dad tapped his head with 2 fingers, knock it off, but his eyes still smiled. I poured water, sat on the chair's edge. "I'm going to pay the overdue electric," I said, "but I'm not covering Caleb's truck note." 3 faces pivoted like I'd switched languages. "A truck gets you to work," Mom shot back. "Helping him helps family." "Help whoever," I said quietly, but in order. Power first, Mom's meds, Dad's insurance. The truck was Caleb's choice. He can carry that one. I'm not sure when my voice learned to put periods in the right places. Maybe radio taught it. Smoke crawled into eyes, the easy alibi for blinking too much. Mom set her fork down. "You've changed." "I'm still me," I said. "I just know what I can carry." Caleb glanced at my cotton sundress and smirked. "You live off cockpit selfies and think you're a badass." I tonged the best rib onto his plate. "Eat," I said. "Smart people don't yell while they are hungry." He stalled a second, then chewed like he could grind my words into pulp. Mom's phone rang, cracked corner, unknown number. Yes, health insurance." Her face shifted shades like storm light. I held out my hand. She hit speaker. A calm voice recited an old hospital balance and a collection timeline. I looked at Dad. He looked away, coughed like he'd misplaced a speech. "I'll cover that," I said. "This week." Mom brightened. "See," she told me. "Family sticks together, don't nitpick." I swallowed water and said, "I'll use my emergency fund for this. In return, Caleb covers his car insurance this month." He kicked his chair back. "Why drag me into it?" "Because grown men pay for what they pick," I said. The air prickled. Dad lifted the grill lid like a shield. I turned burners low and set the lid. "Don't widen the battlefield." I fetched a smaller envelope from the toolbox and laid it on the table. "Number for legal assistance at the nearest base. If you want help mapping a budget, they'll walk you through it. Mom frowned. You bringing law into this house? No, I said. A plan. I've learned the right plan can change the way people scream at each other. Caleb jabbed the coals and kicked the fire higher. Sounds like a sermon, he spat. Something went cling, his keys hit gravel. He snatched them up and squinted. What do you want, really? A perfect family photo to brag to your generals. I laughed, not amused. No one needs to see anything, I said. I just need the lights on at the end of the month. Dad sighed, his pouring hand shaking a little. In that shoulder I saw a weight without a name, something he never learned how to set down. Dusk folded in. Trailer windows cast that tired yellow you only get from bulbs bought on sale. Mom stacked plates into a plastic tub, dish soap frothing like beer. I tied my hair back and wiped sauce from the grill lip, small motions to put my hands on chaos without knocking it over. From my trunk I brought a zip bag of prints, not cockpit glamour, me and friends laughing by a vending machine, a desert corner stamped with tire snakes, a flight boot worn slick at the heel. I handed them to Mom. If you want to show people, show them this. Life, not medals. Her mouth softened at the edges. You have friends, she said, surprised. I understood that surprise. I'd walled myself off for years. I do, I said. And if I didn't, I'd still be okay. She looked longer and nodded, like unbuttoning a stubborn top button. Night thickened, bugs set up a chorus, somebody next door spun soft country. Caleb hauled trash past me and muttered, "Don't think you're better than us." I kept my eyes forward. "You're not beneath anyone if you stand up straight," I said, "but you have to stand yourself." He snorted. The bag rasped the can. I stared at my hands, BBQ streaks drying the color of rust. I thought about the family checklist. Power, paid hospital, paid truck owner's problem. Boundaries don't fence love out, they keep it from burning down on a grill turned too high. Before I went inside, I checked my phone on the porch. A text from Noah, "You good?" I typed, "Good, windy but manageable." He answered a minute later, "Copy, hold your line." I slid the phone away. Night air carried dish soap and cool gravel. I'd drive out in the morning. They would keep being themselves. And me, if I couldn't change the wind, I'd change the wing. We spread paperwork on the kitchen table like a campaign map. In the corner, the kettle ticked and breathed, fogging a small oval on the window. I opened my notebook and with a fat marker wrote at the top, "if/then." Noah leaned on the edge of the table, skimming each line the way he skims terrain on a satellite print. "Start simple," he said. "Who touches you? Who escalates? Who breaks stuff? Each one gets its own branch." I nodded. I didn't want my wedding to turn into a law class, but I've learned hope is not a plan. I pulled up the ANG policy tabs I'd saved and my UCMJ notes. I wouldn't be in uniform at the ceremony, but that doesn't erase my status if I'm assaulted. Article 128, I said. Assault, and if service members are present, they're clean witnesses. Noah drummed a slow rhythm on wood. And 134 if the mess affects good order and discipline, he added. Not to scare anybody, to hold the line. I drew a decision tree. IF Caleb shows up drunk, right arrow, then seat him last row and assign someone to route him outside. IF there's physical contact, right arrow, then log witnesses, call local police and the nearest base security forces. I hated picturing it, but I know my body. When it knows the route, it shakes less. I don't want to get married in a fighting stance, I said. Noah tilted his head. Nobody does. We don't pick the wind. We split roles like a duty roster. Noah, on-site coordinator if anything pops, quiet net with our military friends. Me, calm voice, correct terms, no feelings debate, describe behavior only. Friends, 2 up front, a staff sergeant and a captain, briefed on rules of engagement in a civilian setting. I texted them. No hands, witness, take notes, record if needed. Let the law finish the job. Their OKs came back fast and square like boots on packed dirt. That night we rehearsed. Noah read the scenario in a dry, radio-flat tone. Male relative approaches, agitated, makes contact with the bride's shoulder. He held his palm a handspan from me. "What do you do?" I breathed in. "I say don't touch her." Then I step back, take the MC's mic, pause the ceremony, and ask him to leave. If he won't, dial 911. Use the word assault. Note that commissioned officers are present. Noah nodded, slate-gray eyes not itching for a fight, just moving a convoy through a narrow pass. I called the venue. "We need a fallback room," I said. "Lockable door, a place for the couple to step into if needed." The manager was surprised, not resistant. I asked for an extra security staffer, not a bouncer, just someone who knows how to stand between two oversized egos. When I hung up, my heart rate clicked down. Peace is sometimes a side product of paperwork. Mom rang. "Don't overdo it," she said. "Weddings are supposed to be fun." I didn't recite the decision tree, I just said, "I want everyone safe." On the other end, she sighed. "Caleb is young. Young burned through his forgiveness ration years ago." I stayed silent. No reason to turn a phone call into a hearing. After we hung up, I added another branch. "If a relative plays the family business card, right arrow, then have the MC read the house rules. Respect, no violence, no overpour." Noah pulled a thin, battered booklet from a shelf, his photocopied Art of War. "Not to get philosophical," he grinned. "Just 2 rules. Know yourself, know the other guy. Choose the ground." I flipped to the line about the best victories being the ones you don't have to fight for. I underlined it and pictured white lace, the hardpan lot outside Vegas, the second a person might try to yank me out of my own ceremony with a grab. "We choose the ground," I said. "Law and daylight." We built a contact list. Local PD venue manager, our friend with the camera, the 2 military witnesses, the on-base legal assistant's number. I copied every number onto a palm-sized card, laminated it, and slid it into my ID wallet. I stashed a compact first aid kit in the dressing room, not doomsaying, just a habit from living around risk. Noah watched without a smile. He knows sometimes the only honest voice in a room is an inanimate object. We sat on the floor with our backs to the wall, the kitchen light throwing a small gold perimeter like a forward operating base in a black desert. "Maybe we'll never need any of this," Noah said. "Maybe." I rested my head on his shoulder. "If we do, I don't want to assemble the law with a racing pulse." He wrapped an arm around me, his heartbeat ticked like a metronome. "Tomorrow we run it once more," he said. "Then we put it in the drawer. After that, we just get married." Morning, I sent a tight confirm email to the venue. Subject line, event conduct and safety. I stripped adjectives and left commands. No physical contact. Alcohol cut-off time. Designated quiet room. I hit send and watched the progress bar crawl like a tiny pressure gauge. Then I closed the laptop and wrote the last line in my notebook. If someone turns our vow into a fight, then we turn the fight into paperwork. Not because I love paperwork, because paperwork holds the shape of truth when mouths try to bend it. At lunch, we walked the block around our rental. Sky like plate glass. A dog barked behind a fence and shut up when Noah looked over and said, "Easy." I thought our marriage would probably be like CAS. No one needs to hear us being brave. They need to hear us being clear. And if anyone forces us to raise our volume, we'll speak a language they can't drown out. Facts, witnesses, law. I took Noah's hand, the same hand that once drew a target on desert crust for me with 9 dry lines over the net. Now it drew us a path through regular life, short, firm, release on time. Back at the door, I looked at the IF/then sheet on the table. The arrows were almost funny in the nice weather. I folded it and slid it into a sleeve labeled wedding plan copy. I'm not asking for a perfect ceremony. I'm asking for one where no one confuses love with the right to touch. And if someone does, I'll show them the line, not with a shout, but with black ink. Sun poured onto the patio like someone tipped a giant pitcher, light pooling in white streaks across my lace. I stood under the arch, left cheek still a little swollen from the earlier scuffle. The bar had shut down on schedule. The extra side chairs were already stacked. If anyone needed to be escorted out, we had a clean lane. Our captain friend in the front row gave me the smallest nod. The staff sergeant beside him had his notes app open, camera up and ready. On the MC's table sat the printout, event conduct and safety, a cold sheet of sentences, the best fence we could build for love. The officiant started again, voice steady like nothing at all had happened. I breathed in and the whole desert slid into my lungs. Noah tilted his head, those gray eyes a cool patch of water. I thought about the IF/ then arrows folded into an envelope marked wedding plan, copy in the dressing room. I didn't crave payback, I craved order. A life with a flight path, not a life of emergency descents. Caleb appeared out of glare like a crooked shadow, shirt half unbuttoned, tie hanging like a tired snake. One of his buddies gave a low catcall off-key horn. I saw the staff sergeant's eyelids flick, a choir mark. My mother exhaled her old charm against consequences, it's family business. And the MC read the house rules on cue. No violence, no physical contact. If anyone feels unwell, the quiet room is to the right. Those words drew chalk lines on the ground. Caleb didn't care. He lunged in, finger jabbing at my chest, mouth fumbling the same phrases I'd been fed for years. Pilot, toy, scarecrow. I took exactly one step back, like we practiced. Stop, Noah said, no volume change. Hands where I can see them. It was the same voice he used to arrange men in a valley, clear, unarguable. Caleb sneered, tie whipping like a tail. Then his open hand drifted toward the lace at my dress hem. Nothing, except a straight line across a boundary. I didn't get to say my line. Noah slid half a step and put his body between us like a thin, solid wall. Don't touch her. 4 words dropped and latched. The staff sergeant stood without closing distance and raised his phone a notch to fix the angle. The captain lifted his ID just enough to signal, commissioned officer present. Caleb shoved Noah, hard. Not an accident. The sound was a dry knock and everywhere chairs scraped like a tide. Noah didn't shove back. He widened his stance, kept the axis, met Caleb's eyes. Stop. His tone drew a map line. You just assaulted me, he said, and you just assaulted a United States military officer. He turned his head enough to carry to the front row. Officers present as witnesses. Our captain nodded, words slow and clean. I witnessed physical contact twice. The coordinates shifted off feelings onto facts. Caleb laughed, but his eyelids fluttered. Family business, he said. Women aren't. He didn't finish. Noah, still even, you'll step into the quiet room on the right. If not, I'm calling 911. He showed his palm, not a threat, a command. Face the wall, he said. Hands where I can see them, now. That was the last brick in the wall between kin and law. Silence pressed down, portable AC humming, lace whispering against my skin. Caleb hunted for a friendly face. His buddies suddenly remembered the camera. Recording, the staff sergeant said, loud enough. The air changed color. My sternum trembled, but the checklist lit up. Don't argue, describe, document. I spoke slow and clear. Caleb approached, touched me, and shoved the groom. No adjectives, verbs, courts listen to verbs, he cursed. Someone near the back said his name in that please don't tone. Noah eased half a step back to open the decision space. You leave, he said, now or 911. I could almost see the IF/ then tree floating in the heat between us. Caleb rolled his eyes and feinted one more step like he needed to test it. That was enough. Noah pulled his phone, dialed. 911, he told the dispatcher, and his voice warmed one notch, the way pros talk to pros in a scene that doesn't need extra drama. Private venue, assault in progress, Officers present as witnesses. He gave the address, a 2-line summary, got a copy, hung up. Mom came forward, eyes glassy. Don't make this biggie, he's your brother. I answered like I was reading a paragraph I trusted. Mom, family business doesn't stop bleeding. I want a wedding, not a battlefield. She stepped back, hand feeling for a chair that wasn't there. My father, silent all day behind the grill, moved one step, palm on Caleb's shoulder. Son, he said softly, enough. I watched Caleb's shoulders sag a centimeter, then spring back under the weight of shame. A patrol car rolled in at a pace that said serious without sirens. 2 officers stepped out, hat brims laying shadows across their faces. They listened to the MC explain the rules, the captain confirm, and they watched the clip the staff sergeant had already captured. Nobody yelled. This is what I've always believed. When law enters, volume drops. Ma'am, are you okay? The female officer asked, gentle. I'm okay, I said. I touched my cheek, still puffy enough to timestamp the day. He initiated contact, twice. I looked at Caleb. He inspected his shirt like it needed ironing. One officer asked Caleb to step out with him. I saw him scan the crowd, hungry for someone to shout, let him go. No one did. The folding chairs were quiet as stones. On the MC's table, the event conduct and safety sheet lay like a small flag. Noah stood next to me without touching. The space between us felt like a bridge. I heard him let a long breath out, the tempo of a metronome. In my head, the line I'd written became a photograph. If someone turns our vow into a fight, then we turn the fight into paperwork. Not ink anymore, reality. The officers came back with boilerplate, report numbers, protective order options, our right to have him removed. Half my brain listened, the other half held Noah's eyes. He dipped a nod. We'll proceed with the ceremony, he told them. After he leaves. I don't know when I fell for him, on a crackly radio in Nevada or on that sentence now. We'll proceed. Maybe both. Courage isn't shouting, it's continuing on time. They walked Caleb to the gate, no applause. I wasn't pleased, just clean tired, like after a long sortie where every checklist hits green. When the latch clicked, a cool seam of air slid across the patio. The officiant cleared his throat. I took Noah's hand. He held me the way a runway holds a set of tires, steady, unfancy. We're here, the officiant said, to do one thing. I looked out, friends' faces, a few relatives, eyes that had bobbled were settling back to true north. I heard myself barely above breath. I'm ready. Noah's smile was the desert veteran's kind. When wind dies, you don't cheer, you check the tie-downs. We said our vows, not long, not frilly. Each word tightened like a bolt. I promised to hold the line when the wind shifted, to keep landing in mind the second we lift. He promised clarity when the net gets dirty, and to place us above any win. The clapping at the end wasn't an explosion. It was the sound people make when a machine rolls off center line without touching anything it shouldn't. I didn't cry. I save tears for things I can't control. This we controlled, dry, exact. During photos, I caught Mom at the edge, eyes rimmed red. I went to her. Her hand was cold. I'm sorry, she whispered. I nodded. In our family, forgiveness isn't a speech. It's holding still while someone passes by. You okay? I asked. She nodded. Above us, the sky was blue like thin metal. The camera clicked, small noise, but it pinned the moment into a frame, same as a stamp on an envelope or the receipt that says received. The afternoon ran smoother than felt possible. When the guests thinned, Noah and I stood there looking at the emptying patio. The arch's shadow stretched like a comma. Copy, he asked, old habit. I smiled. Copy. And for the first time all day, my mouth unclenched. We hadn't beaten anyone. We just refused to lose to the phrase family business. That's enough. The rest, I knew, wouldn't be simple. But here, at the end of part 7, between lace and dust, I believed I could hold the line. The northern coast doesn't do postcard blue. Its fish-scale gray, bright as sharpened steel. Every morning I push open a salt-damp door, walk down a moss-slick slope beneath black pines arched like a cathedral built by atheists, and step onto a beach that's always in retreat. The surf moves on a slow metronome, dragging chalk-thin lace across the sand and erasing footprints within minutes. In that sound, I'm learning a quiet drill, the one about continuing after the storm is gone. My flight helmet hangs in a small glass box on the bookshelf, not for display, more as a way to trap the voice of the checklist in case I forget the clarity that's bailed me out more than once. I left the ANG in the long rain. No bugle send-off, just a forwarded hug from an old crew chief at Moody and a short email from Moose. Jets like cold. People need warm. Stay warm. I read it until I could almost see grease on the letters. Noah moved into training stateside. He teaches new JTAC to talk less so the net stays clean, to lay commands like flat-stepping stones across water. At night, he brings home stories without heroes. A team jammed up by a bad map, a young guy shaking so hard he drifted off frequency, then settling after a hand on the shoulder and 3 words, say it slower. I listen, nod, put another bowl on the table. Our new life lengthens like the trail behind the house. No sprinting required, just putting your foot where you mean to. Mom sent Christmas early, handwriting like ivy climbing a trailer wall. She wrote, "I'm sorry for calling it family business. Family is between us, but us has to start with respect." In the envelope was an old photo of Caleb as a toddler in the laundry tub, splashing. I stared at it for a long time. I didn't relitigate the past, I just wrote back, "Stay warm. I'll come when I'm ready." Forgiveness, I'm learning, isn't a verdict, it's an empty chair waiting. As for Caleb, the court recommended a temporary no contact. He went quiet. Word is he sold the pickup and signed on as a laborer with a small contractor. I didn't congratulate him or roll my eyes. Distance isn't hate. It's making room for someone to meet himself. If growing up shows up, it arrives like the fog on the grass outside our porch. There at first light, becoming water by mid-morning, no applause necessary. Civilian work came in on the right frequency. I took a quality control job at a light aircraft maintenance shop. My hands are back on metal, logs, and emotionless strings of numbers. My heart remembers to be grateful for precision, the thing that's fed me. Some mornings I stand under a low wing and run my fingers along a line of rivets, tapping out Morse on an old story. A 17-year-old girl biking a wet envelope to the post office, a bride standing up to hot wind, a man saying, "Face the wall," in a voice built from stone. One afternoon, a new email pinged. Subject line A10 someday. A junior in Montana, her counselor telling her to pick something more suitable for girls, wondering if she should even apply to Afroc. Somebody told her about our wedding, about 4 words that kept lace and dignity intact, about a road that's true even when it isn't crowded. I sat at the kitchen table watching a wave tip into white letters and wrote back, "No one writes your flight plan but you. When the radio gets dirty, speak clearer. When the wind shifts, correct. Brave isn't loud, it's precise." That night Noah spread a blanket on the beach and poured cocoa that smoked in the cold. Wind sang through the tall pines like a silent platoon at attention. "Sunrise on the point tomorrow?" he asked. I nodded. "We don't promise much. We know the hard part is keeping. We don't talk much. We've already said the things that matter. Continue." Before the sky was blue, we climbed the point. The wind smelled like salt and sap, cool as an unread vow. I took his hand. Below us, the water rolled like a giant sheet of metal about to be stamped. Somewhere in me, a last, wordless checklist spooled out. Thank what's behind, receive what's next, hold the line. When the sun slid up thin as a fresh edge, Noah squeezed my hand, short, firm, release on time. "Copy?" he asked. I smiled, fingers warming. Copy. Turns out our real vows weren't in the ceremony. They live in mornings we choose to stand up straight. In nights we choose to keep quiet when quiet is right. In forms we sign that turn chaos into event. The desert left a fine dust inside me. It makes every sound after ring at the right pitch. Up on the rock, with waves and wind in the pines, I knew I'd stepped off the jet without leaving what makes me fly. The clarity of a short sentence, the pull of a straight boundary, and the belief that if you have to fight, you fight to continue, not to end. We came down when the sun lit the moss in patches. I peeled a brittle sticker from our window pane. The glue smelled faintly like flight suits. Another email had landed. Different girl, different state, same question. I'm not anyone's symbol. I just answer the way I learned. Say it slower. Hold your line. Then I closed the laptop and carried a small, sufficient warmth with me. Not applause, just the tiny after sound of a machine kissing clean concrete, straight, with no one cutting in. Enough. We went to make more cocoa.